Right, well before we start today's video, may I first of all let everyone know that if you don't already know, that Bearing's channel has been reinstated. He did release a very short video, I'll play a clip now.
Am I back? I think I might be back.
Fantastic. I can hardly wait to see what other sponsored ad videos he does in the future, or if we'll get any more information as to why his channel was terminated in the first place. Moving on. Today's subject's going to be about knife crime. Well, not so much knife crime, but knife related in the United Kingdom, because there's an article that was on my server but also floating around on Twitter, and I saw it on Twitter first, where a judge has declared that knives are too sharp and filing them down is solution to soaring violent crime.
Uh-oh, retard alert! Retard alert, class!
At this point, I'm starting to agree with Styx, Hacks and Hammer more and more. He pointed out in a video that in the states that had the lowest gun control law, gun crime was at the lowest, whereas those areas where it was the strictest, it had the highest crime. Astonishing, really. I know people don't like to admit it, but at this point, I'm more inclined to give everyone a weapon and see who has the balls to swing first.
2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
It's getting quite sad now. The number of people dying because of your own retardedness and any excuse you can make up is astonishing. Now we know what is banned in this country, and I know you'd like to continue banning things so that people who are then stabbed can't then defend themselves, although that is of course considered a null argument because reasons. Hashtag logic. But in any case, my point is quite obvious. Stop clamping down on knives because that isn't the root cause of the problem. And just because you've banned something does not mean those committing the crime aren't going to have it. That's not how it works. Removing a weapon out of the equation does not mean the weapon no longer exists. Cough cough, gun crime. Cough cough. Anyway, a judge has proposed a nationwide program to file down the points of kitchen knives as a solution to the country's soaring knife crime epidemic. I just want to now say, London's not truly indicative of the rest of the country. Second, if you sharpen down kitchen knives, this is going to impact on a few careers, chefs namely, my Sammich wenches predominantly, when you start to make it so that people can't do their jobs, because you have also punished them with some blanket program bollocks. You put other people also in the position where they are also unable to do things to a certain standard. We have the capacity to sharpen knives because when we sharpen knives in the context of them being in the kitchen, they are used to cut up meats or vegetables and other things, obviously. I mean, if you're really adventurous, you can try and cut up a hard candy or one of those massive jawbreaker sweets, which my sister did as a child and cut a hand open. She really shouldn't have done that. In any case, this is not a solution that should be taken seriously, because if you start to enforce this idea, you are going to be putting a lot of people in a very difficult position. And as always, it's the innocent people that actually suffer. When you introduce more and more restrictive laws on something, the innocent people are always the ones that seem to suffer first in this day and age. If you want to deal with knife crime, deal with the root cause that led them to carry the knife to you attack someone in the first place. Let's start with culture, neighbourhoods. Let's look at poverty, education, employment, instead of just jumping to the item and not dealing with the root cause. Or is this too sensible for your pea-sized brain? You're a judge. Fuck me, you're a retard. Last week in his valedictory address, retiring Luton Crown Court Judge, thank fuck for that, Nick Madge, spoke of his concern that carrying a knife had become routine in some circles and called on the government to ban the sale of large pointed kitchen knives. That's racist. Latest figures show stabbing deaths among teenagers and young adults have reached the highest level for 8 years, and knife crime overall rose 22% in 2017. I believe the London mayor attributed this to police budget cuts. That might be one of the reasons for it. Police presence does, after all, supposedly, curb people's desire to commit a crime. But then again, with some gangs, it's seen as a badge of honour to have stepped in a prison. So it's not so much of an incentive to not commit the crime just because there are more police officers. Now, I can certainly understand if you want to ban those sales of those knives in certain areas where knife crime is prevalent. And I think this is clear. You yourself have said in some circles, should the entire nation be made to pay to then be forced to use shoddy, low-grade butter knives to cut their steak because of some retards in suburban London in it. In the past 2 months, he said there have been 77 knife-related incidents in Bedfordshire, including 3 killings. Judge Madge told the assembled judges, barristers and court staff these offences often seem motiveless. One boy was stabbed because he had an argument a couple of years before at his junior school. That is a pitiful excuse provided, and it is astonishing how somebody held a grudge for that long. I hope they thoroughly enjoy prison. But tell me now, how do you stop someone from holding such a grudge for so long to then use a knife to get their point across? Tell me, removing the knife does not mean the person isn't going to then have committed the crime. They will have used something else, and let's not forget here, even if the knife was illegal, it does not mean they would not have had the knife. Cough cough, gun crime, cough cough. He said laws designed to reduce the availability of weapons to young would-be offenders had had almost no effect, since the vast majority had merely taken knives from a cutlery drawer. So, it doesn't matter where the knife came from. Again, I have to state it, and I will continue to. Removing the knife will not prevent the crime. Okay, would actually, to an extent, but I'm sure they will find another knife. He said a few of the blades carried by youths are so-called Rambo knives or samurai swords. They, though, are a very small minority. I don't know much about Rambo knives, but the samurai sword is a really shit weapon to stab someone with. Anyone who disagrees with me, come at me, bro. I have a collection of swords that say they are all better than a shitty samurai sword. And I say shitty because most of them aren't forged very well. They are brittle, and they rust really easily. The reason why these measures have little effect is that the vast majority of knives carried by youths are ordinary kitchen knives. Every kitchen contains lethal knives which are potential murder weapons. I would go so far as to say all knives are lethal in some way. Can't deny it. Even the most blunt knife possible could be used to stab someone if hit hard enough. You could easily stab someone with a butter knife if you're really, really committed. So I think your argument is moot. Now below are the statistics for knife, crime, blade or point weapon attacks, and it has gone up quite nastily. It had started to go down during the early years of the Conservative government, but it has now surpassed that of when David Cameron left. Now it is higher than it was during Gordon Brown's time. And we could look at many factors for this. A lot of people will say we can blame this on austerity. I do not want to place blame on any of this. I want to address the issue and treat it. I would rather help someone than simply point a finger and say, instead of stabbing that person, you should be blaming that person who legislated you weren't able to get as much money for youth programs, which I know are beneficial. I know they are. But I will not be drawn into the many reasons why austerity had to be introduced, and the unfortunate consequences of it, because I know this then becomes a left v right argument, and I am far too lazy to spend an hour breaking all of that down, especially as it will come down to individual issues that will take forever to do research for. Accordingly, it is very easy for any youth who wants to obtain a knife to take it from the kitchen drawer in his home or in the home of one of his friends. Gendered much? I know the majority are male, but seriously. There's a girl in prison who threatened to kill Rose West, and she's there serving a whole lifetime knifey, bitchy thing. As a result, said the judge, the most common knife a youth will take out is 8 to 10 inches long, and pointed from his mother's cutlery tray. He asked, but why do we need 8 to 10 inch kitchen knives with points? Butchers and fishmongers do. But how often, if at all, does a domestic chef use the point of an 8-inch or 10-inch knife? Rarely, if at all. So what you're suggesting is that instead of having knives in the home, because you don't want the point, you want them to be blunted. Now I wonder if anyone can think of a blade that's got a bladed side but does not have a tip. It's flat, almost as if when it's used to strike wood, meat, vegetables, it cleaves it. Any ideas, anyone? Acknowledging that any blade could cause injury, the judge pointed out, slash wounds are rarely fatal. Cleaver. The answer was cleaver. And if you've not seen the damage they can do, you are a fucking idiot. So he said, I would urge all those with any role in relation to knives manufacturers, shops, the police, local authorities, the government, to consider preventing the sale of long-pointed knives, except in rare, defined circumstances. Authoritarianism, everyone, yay! It might even be that the police could organise a program whereby the owners of kitchen knives which have been properly and lawfully bought for culinary purposes could be taken somewhere to be modified, with the point being ground down into rounded ends. That won't stop it piercing your skin if used hard enough. You colossal bellend. Now, this article from The Telegraph then references London knife crime. I've spoken about it before, and I think it's really, really, really bad, to the point where I just won't go near London without a knife jacket. Even at my height, I just don't want to get stabbed in the hip. Now, I think I've made my point about what I think of this quite clear, but I am very much interested to hear what you all think. While this guy may be a retiring judge, he is putting forward an idea from a very strong position, very influential position. And someone is going to listen to him, no doubt they will, and try and bring this forward into government, or to Parliament to be more specific. So I'd like to know what you, my audience, would think. Please let me know in the comments below. And before we finish, yesterday I promised I'd do an all-day game stream. Yes, well, thunderstorms made sure that wouldn't happen, but to those that subscribed, thank you. I am looking to stream that on Friday, around about 9 PM GMT. Now, if PMQs is on today, as I think it is, I will be doing a stream responding to that on Thursday at 10 PM GMT. So I hope everyone has a lovely day, and thank you all for listening.
I've got downs. Imagine my shock